Okay, here we go. Here we go. Hello, hello, and welcome. Today is the 1st of December. This is our community meeting, our first community meeting for the month of December. Welcome back to all of you that were observing Thanksgiving. Happy Hanukkah to those of you who are observing that holiday this week. As always, our objective in our community meetings is to give you, the community, an update of how things are going with the project. This meeting is recorded and is being uploaded to YouTube. So if there are company-specific things or things not directly relevant to the project, I ask that you please hold those so that this can be for the general welfare of everyone in the community. And let's get started with, we have a second objective today, and that's to get some feedback on our UI for Tanzu Community Edition. So we've got a couple of special guests here that are going to help us, and I'll be helping moderate that conversation as well. So first thing, we're not going to have meetings on December 22nd and 29th for US holidays. One thing that we're feeling out right now is how we feel about the 15th of December and the 5th of January, which would ordinarily be meetings. The current consensus is that we keep the 15th meeting and we cancel the 5th of January meeting. Are there any objections to that? You can use the thumbs up or thumbs down. Or if you want to add comment, you feel free to raise your hand and we'll get through those. Okay. I see no thumbs downs. So, all right. We will be canceling that meeting for January 5th. So we'll see you all back on 7 + 5, 12. January 12th. We'll see you on January 12th. Okay. As a reminder, we have our APAC calls starting in February. Still figuring out how that's all going to go. But for those of you who are watching the stream, don't worry. We have not forgotten about you. We want to be sure to include some more time zones. And as usual, we've got a system in place now for receiving swag. Some of you on this call have already gotten some swag. So thank you for helping us out. We're glad that we're able to send you some things. Yeah, for the show and tell, we were doing one person a month. The winner this month is Robert, who is here on the call. So please get in touch with me and I will be sure to send you out some swag from us. Yeah, but we thank you for all of your activity in the Slack channel and the GitHub repo. We don't have any targeted shout outs this week, but we are looking for more opportunities to thank you all for all the contributions that you all are making to Tanzu Community Edition. With that, I want to start with the UI discussion. So we have Justin here. And yeah, Justin, if you want to just go ahead and take it away.
Hey there. Yeah, sure. Sorry, Maharshi couldn't make this meeting, but yeah, just wanted to join the meeting and to more openly invite the community to provide pointed feedback on the UI specifically, and in doing so by raising GitHub issues or using this for open discussion, right? And I guess what I'm the types of conversations that I'd love to have are some of the small incremental improvements that we can do to existing features, but even more importantly, some of the bigger ticket items to improve the overall onboarding experience for users. Some ideas might be like a more integrated user experience with docs, a more guided experience up front to help the user maybe validate and understand some prerequisites, but just wanting to start that conversation to understand how the community views the UI and what kind of gaps we can identify and start to work towards filling.
So if anyone wants to jump in on that conversation, please raise your hand. Let's have a conversation about the UI. Have you all used it? Has anyone used the UI for Tanzu Community Edition for the install?
Not for a very long time.
Not for a long time. Jorge, you've got something?
Yeah, so I just wanted to raise one thing that really nags me a little bit is that there is no UI for the workload clusters, right? So the experience is management cluster, there is a UI, and basically we need to copy a configuration file and understand and know how to change, remove, add, customize configuration values. To many people, that's easy enough. For me, I'm a developer. Have a developer background, so to me that is complicated sometimes. And it basically has just one type of cluster or workload cluster configuration that I typically reuse. But then the problem is, I don't know if I need to update some, like if my version 09 to version 10, there is a difference, I probably will be applying still the version 9 configuration to my workload cluster, basically, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is certainly a valid request, and something that I've wanted to, our teams wanted to address for quite a long time. I think, maybe we can have some discussions over Slack involving Roger and, determine how we can sort of, fit this alongside, the core underlying application. It would likely have to be something that's specific to the community edition, which is great. But yeah, for certain, we'll need some PM prioritization.
Thank you, Jorge. Amanda?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of comments about prerequisites and knowing what people need. It looks like people are getting stuck and we're having to troubleshoot a lot to go back to, hey, this is a prereq. So I'm wondering if other people are seeing that as well. It's just a thread that I keep seeing come up. We could do a little better here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't always see all of the the feedback around that, but I do know that is an issue for the product as a whole, right? Whether we're talking about CLI or UI, whatever it is. But I think we do have a unique opportunity with the UI to alleviate some of that friction. And I think some of the high level ideas that I rattled off before around like a more integrated experience with documentation in the UI before a user just jumps right into a workflow, and then maybe even doing some real-time validation of prerequisites and helping to guide the user there a little bit more. I'm all for it. I think I agree. That's largely what we're missing here for new users. Maybe this is even just sort of, for this type of solution, what we should probably do is just create sort of like a bucket GitHub issue to start to float some ideas in there. But Roger, I look to you for your feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as we look at things that are guiding, I think there are two parallel issues, right? One of them is a more guided experience for parts of it, and one of them is the resource check, which is a part of that, but may also be necessary. I think there's a hierarchy, right? Where people will want a guided experience and yet want to be able to turn off the guiding to some extent so that they don't, throw a brick at the screen the 7th time they're running it.
Yep.
But still, just as we do, for example, to see that Docker's running, there should be more checks that, I agree, there should be more checks that we're providing VM configuration with enough memory, we're providing reasonable instances, stuff like that. And that should go on, people, that one should be, I won't say harder to disable, but that one should be for most people later to disable. So separately, you should be able to hit and I know what I'm doing on that, but it's a separate issue. So yes, I will absolutely open issues for it.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And I'm kind of reading through the chat here. I saw a couple of mentions around some of the Docker prerequisites on resources there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a fantastic example. I can't recall if it was Josh or someone else who had raised the GitHub issue, but I believe for or in the current code base, we do have some additional checks now to confirm that the user has the appropriate resource settings or the minimum requirements there.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to start adding more of that to sort of help users before it's too late and they're waiting for their cluster to deploy and it fails, and we know how that goes.
And it's especially aggravated by some of the failure modes aren't, the feedback isn't good, even from, not just from the UI, but isn't good from the system. You get hanging pods, you get things that are not clear failures. So they're even harder to diagnose than they might otherwise be. So
yep,
that especially makes the pre-checks more important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we see Jace's comment there. What about conceptual prerequisites? Is that something that we want to handle in partnership with advocacy creating content, or something that we should cover in the docs? So some of the prerequisites that they bring up are networking, cluster configuration, container runtime, I would say cluster API as well. But we can have that conversation another time, because that's not specific to the UI, but just something for us to think about. Kay, you had your hand next.
Wait, something specific to the UI, and I didn't get an answer in the chat. Sorry to interrupt. Is the UI assumes what all the things in your cloud provider mean and how to do a whole bunch of stuff. And that for me as a new user I don't know that much AWS, but I was using AWS, and so like SSH keys and all this other stuff that you were asking I had no idea where they should be put. I didn't know, there's some terms in there which are really confusing if you're relatively new, and I consider that a prerequisite, and I don't know how to answer it.
So one thing that we were talking about a while ago was kind of opinionated install docs, and that would be an opportunity, I think, to have like a glossary of terms or an explanation of everything that you're using, sort of like a Kubernetes the hard way kind of thing. So I don't know if that's not specifically a UI thing, but some docs or guides that we could create to help along that line.
Yeah, I would say in the spirit of everything else we've been talking about intro things that you can turn off, as your maturity goes, it probably would be really helpful to have an initial, before you go on, you may want to read this, and this sort of thing that then people can also turn off. So, have that as, yes, have it in the docs, but also have it as, are you sure you know this before going on?
Yeah.
And then people can do that once and then click a don't show me this again, for example.
Yeah, so Josh's point here in the chat, I think we should move the high majority of our documentation into the Kickstarter and out of our docs. Kay, I want to get to your hand.
Yeah, similar point there, really, I think, to what Josh is saying. So, we did meet before, Justin and I, and looked at, what we could do to integrate some of the content that is in the doc into the UI. And vice versa, how we could link from the UI to some of the content that's in the doc.
Mm-hmm.
So, we definitely need to work on those and on both of those and see what needs to be done. I mean, I think the thing with the UI is, as mentioned, it's very complex. We can't give a lot of detail about everything that's in there because it would get overcrowded very quickly. So it's just to give the minimum amount of detail that would, hopefully work for a lot of users, but to allow them to easily get more information by either just a hover button where a bigger piece of information will appear, or else a link out to the documentation. So it's really just to figure out the mechanics of how to share the information. Like a lot of that prerequisite information that people might need at certain points when they're working through the UI, that's in the doc, but they don't know how to, where to go in the doc to find that. So it's just to get those links set up. So we did look at doing this before, so it's something that definitely want to go back to and do some more work on.
Yeah.
Nigel, if I could jump in, just on this point. My name's Shimon, by the way, and I'm on the same team with Justin working on the UI. We have built a contextual help system that would, I think, solve a lot of the things that we're talking about. If we had the help docs structured in a particular kind of format, then we can allow the user to discover those things in the UI in a friendly way that's not intrusive. So I think it would be good to explore that.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think this is also like sort of speaking to a larger conversation that we had been having about, what we wanted to provide as a community for Tanzu Community Edition, and about this education piece that keeps coming up with the contextual help with kind of defining some of these terms with all the knowledge prerequisites as opposed to just the hardware ones. Josh, I've got your hand next.
Yeah, I wanted to hit on something that Jorge said that relates to maybe an architectural consideration. The desire for workload cluster creation obviously expands what the Kickstart UI currently does. And I really view the UI as an opportunity to really understand the scope of Tanzu and getting started with Tanzu. And I think that makes it a little bit awkward that the Kickstart UI is embedded in the management cluster plugin. So if you think about the use case where you expand it into potential cluster creation as well, I wonder if we could make a more compelling on-ramp for our users by introducing something that is like a Tanzu UI-esque command that underlying talks to APIs exposed by things like the management cluster plugin and the cluster plugin that allow users to go down a path where rather than there being several UIs they have to trigger from a CLI, there's one, and they could bootstrap a management cluster or bootstrap a workload cluster attached to a management cluster, or maybe even bootstrap the new standalone model. I just worry that we're going to end up with this very kind of disparate, kind of segregated user experience if we continue down the track of embedding these microsites in every plugin relative to having just more of a holistic view on what you can do with Tanzu from a UI perspective.
Yeah, Josh, I'm with you 100% on that one. Sorry.
I was gonna just that.
Yeah. It's I'd love to continue this conversation and talk about the solution, not only at the high level user experience and design level, but also at the technical level. How because that will impact how the user sort of bootstraps the UI itself, right? Whether if it is part of the CLI, they're going to run a CLI command, and then maybe it has to live in Tanzu core. I don't know. I don't want to dive into too many details here, but yeah, I'm all for making some sort of change in re-architecture around this area.
Great. We'll talk more about it then.
Scott, I've got your hand next. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Shimon, were you going to say something there?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to tag along on that. And that is that I think, Justin and I have talked a fair amount now about the idea of having the user enter the entire experience through a UI and just turn the paradigm on its head, which I think what Josh was saying. Instead of having different UI elements associated with different click commands and different little parts, turn it on its head and start with a UI that will allow you to do various things. And that way the user experience is integrated and holistic.
Gotcha. Scott?
Yeah, I think the one thing in terms of the UI that I always have seen is that the UI is great for the simple use case, for the standard use case, but there are a lot, unfortunately, there are a huge, or fortunately or not, there are a huge amount of YTT values in Tanzu that can be set. And a subset of those are available via the UI. And I think that enabling them all in the UI would be way too complex and way too large of a form. But I think having some way of, at the end, having the ability to add in custom YTT data values, meaning just add in, as if you were doing the configuration, just having a blocks of extra config where if someone knows what they're doing, they don't need to, they get the automatic dropdowns of the vSphere resource pools and clusters and data stores and don't need to remember everything. They can use the UI for 90% of the way, but having that way that they can add in the special values of audit logging or machine health check specific values that exist that you can do when you go the configuration file path, but can't if you go down the UI path. Having just that escape hatch kind of at the end would just allow the UI for more use cases.
What a lot of UIs do in cases like that are keep track of the things they know about and don't know about it, and let you edit the text files inside the UI, but then also have the UI logic not screw with the things they don't know how to maintain.
Exactly right. In the end, the UI is creating the config file, and then in the back end running the management cluster. It's creating the file in the end that is being used. Right. So just allowing the way to then in that review, like summary page, allowed to add something. Would be a small change that would just enhance the capabilities of using it. Because I've had many use cases where I just can't use the UI, or I use it, cancel it, take that file, and then go and manipulate it myself before deploying.
Yeah, and we could make that a much smoother experience.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback, Scott. Looking at the time, we do kind of got to get moving. So John, engineering updates.
Yeah, sure thing. Welcome everybody and happy December 1st. V010 is on its way. If you didn't know before the break, we released a RC candidate, which you can see over here. Please give it a try, give us feedback, drop in the Slack your thoughts. You can also track our release here in this issue 1293. And then we will be cutting another RC soon. I don't know if today or tomorrow, if Josh wants to chime in on that. But quick note on that, there is a known issue on the vSphere OVAs, and there's a few issues in the repo about that. So the RC currently as is doesn't work with vSphere since those OVAs aren't in Customer Connect. So yeah, new RC coming soon. Josh, do you have an idea when?
Yeah, I think we'll probably have something towards end of week. We're polishing up some films.
Okay, sounds good. So end of week. Some longstanding things. The standalone cluster overhaul is happening. There's a proposal. There's also a branch where you can get that build and try it out. All the details are in there. And then a shameless plug. Tuesday, I'll be giving a talk on TCE with Tanzu Tuesdays on Twitch. So tune in for that.
Yeah, that's in our next section of advocacy updates.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Lee, would you like to do the advocacy updates?
Sorry, I wasn't like really prepared. I was just tuning in for the UI feedback.
Okay.
So I'm going to be playing a little bit with the UI actually today. But I am super stoked about the Tanzu Tuesdays episode. And yeah, you should definitely jump on there. For anyone tuning into the call or who hasn't jumped onto that stream before, we stream it on Twitch, and you can find the link either at tanzu.tv, where we have all of the episode details. You can see Josh's face there, or you can go to our Twitch channel, Twitch/VMware Tanzu. So
yeah, and we've got the link right here in our notes and in the channel. So thanks for that. Before we get out of here, Robert, you had something?
I just wanted to note the Dutch VMUG, the Dutch VMware user group meetup, used to be the biggest one in the world. It's been dead for 2 years because of Corona. It's restarting 16th of December. I have a session there where I'm going to compare the different TKG flavors. And of course, after VMworld, I can now add TCE to the list. So I'll be speaking on a little bit in that session on TCE. And I was wondering if anyone in this group would like to review some of my slides with me, just as a sanity check on my information that I'm putting the right stuff out there to the wider world.
I would be happy to, and if anybody, if there is content beyond my, yeah, okay, Josh, you just chimed in with exactly what I was going to ask you to, so awesome, which is like, you know, anything that's out of my league, I will, you know, yell for help.
Oh yeah, and that's a good point from Amanda. Any slides I can reuse would be extremely welcome, of course.
Amanda and Jennifer also.
Awesome. Well, thank you for getting out there and getting the word out about Tanzu Community Edition. Thanks for the lively conversation about the UI. I feel like that went pretty well. We're going to leave a mechanism online for those of you who are watching the video to be able to give your feedback as well. Don't want you to feel left out. So if there are things that you want to add, we'll have something in the Slack channel for you to be able to do that. And we'll also link to it in the discussion post about this community meeting. Thanks so much for joining us, y'all. We'll see you next week for the office hours. Bring your questions. Let us help you troubleshoot. Check out the RC. Let us know how we can help you. Take care. Bye.